Hello and welcome to episode 0 of the Do Our Daily podcast, or DADcast. This is a test intro episode of some sort in which we'll detail how the podcast will work, the main goals of it, and basically what is Do Our Daily if you're not familiar with it. First of all, I'd like to welcome you as Lafayette Tiki, one of your guests, and introduce you to my lovely co-host, Bastien.
Hello, everyone. It is me, Bastien, here.
I'll let you start with the explanation of what is Do Our Daily or dad.gallery.com. Tell us.
Dad is a site about drawing. The idea of the site, as the name implies, is to draw every day in order to get better and to build a habit of, just drawing, engaging with art, and overall getting more serious with the activity. The way in which the site works is that you can upload your work every day, considering, the rules, which are simply to draw 30 minutes and then upload. Besides that, there's different frequencies, although, in order to go by the spirit of the site, it would be ideal to do it daily, but if you're too busy a lad, we can allow you some other options. But for the most part, that's it. So besides of how the site works, we also have a little history lesson. In the olden times, there was Labaflake, this marvelous gentleman, who came up with the good idea of like, oh hey, we're not really improving. What the hell are we doing here, man? He thought of this concept of creating a thread where he prompted everyone to be the last artist standing. And for this, you would have to upload a drawing daily from a pool of participants until only one remained, and then do it again ad infinitum, I guess. The goal is to improve. So that led to a site which had many of the first people, some of which are still around. And it started with the idea until, our precious Lava, he went to a better place, and we're here left with his legacy now, being guided by our beloved site overlord, Banana, in the third iteration of this marvelous idea.
Indeed. As it stands nowadays, DAD has evolved from its original form, but still maintains the main idea of being that you need to make an habit out of drawing if you want to improve. But DAD is not only just a simple habit tracker. It's more of a community, an art community of its own that originated from the artwork and critique board of 4chan, but went far beyond this. Nowadays, that is, of course, a website, the thread that keeps getting recreated on 4chan, but also a Discord or DADcord. That is the main point, it's the main place where the community of DAD develops. Nowadays, there's regulars of the site, a real sense of community, challenges which are created, which sometimes are more like prompts, sometimes are more like week or month-long efforts to create art for a certain purpose, sometimes as teams, and all the while we're keeping the same idea that we want to improve. And some people actually are still around from the time when Dad was last artist standing. So moving on, now that we've introduced what Dad is, we'll briefly introduce ourselves. So I'll start with myself. Lafayette Tiki. I've been using that for about 8 months now, seriously. I first created my account last year before summer, but I've only been really active since November of 2019. I've been an active artist on the artwork and critique community of 4chan since October 2018. I've been drawing almost daily since more than a year and a half, I'd say. And it is from seeing the real community that was going on that I want to really contribute something more than just drawings in the form of DADcast. And so I asked one of my dear co-dad, which I thought had many interesting things to say and many values in his personality, very charismatic person, Bastien, and invited him to co-host DADcast with me.
Hello, everyone. I am Bastien, your co-host, here to guide this thing to wherever it leads us. And to give you a brief introduction of me, I started on DAD about just a little bit over a year ago. I mainly used to be around on little corners here of the and there, of the internet where people would post art. During some periods, I was just dicking around in the Oakaki board of 4chan. And I remember that some people, would look at IC with a lot of mysticism just because people were just drawing for fun. And I will never forget this in time that I was just, submitting some doodle to a thread or something when people were joking about it and somebody said like, "Oh, I see, you mean like art hell." And I was like, "Oh, I am very interested in this art hell. What is this?" And here and there I started looking into it, but kind of intermittently, participating here and there, and at some periods just doing my own thing somewhere else. And one time I came across this little thread where that read "last artist standing." And I was like, man, this sounds like a lot of competition. This is kind of intimidating. But I remember opening it up. It's like, oh, look, there's a site and everything. Okay, I think I'll save this, just to look into it on a further date. And then I don't know how much long after that. At one point, I was like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. I'm trying this thing. I'm committing. And ever since I started that, I started drawing more than ever before. And I think I've really improved a lot. And it's helped me come through a bunch of things. And to finish with our introductions and not leave them unmentioned, we have our beloved sound operator who is acting as a shadow behind our backs right now. I assure you that even though you cannot see him, he's with us here in spirit, and his name is Seven.
And on Discord, he's also with us.
He's also on Discord. He's watching our every move.
7, or known on DAD.gallery as 7B7A2F.
Yes,
it's easier to say 7.
You'll have to write the hex code to find out his real name because, he's so complex, he's actually a color rather than an actual personality. But anyway, all right, Lafayette, why don't you go on ahead and you mention a little bit of history about the podcast?
Oh, yes.
Because it used to exist before, and we're sort of reviving it right now.
Indeed. In the immemorial times of about 1 year ago, maybe a bit more, there was an art podcast hosted by two lovely people, two lovely DAD users by the name of Joe and Will, who had a similar idea to us. They liked the community aspect of that and thought that it would be interesting to invite fellow artists on their podcast and to talk about them, about basically their goals, what do they want to accomplish with their art, what do they like to draw, why did they join that, what did it bring to them, and also ask people on that, other users, to ask them questions. Because, that is a pretty big community. So sometimes you see someone's art, you think, oh, that's pretty cool. And you ask yourself, I wonder who this person is, or what is their goal? What is their end goal? Are they actually going to be pro, or they're just a hobbyist? And that's from this question, from this wonder, that LastCast was born. Unfortunately, LastCast was a bit short-lived. It had a few episodes, around 6 or 7, if I recall correctly, with interesting guests and a really promising formula. Which is why on the 4chan thread, if there were regular posters asking LastCast when is LastCast going to come back? Well, a few weeks ago, Bastian and I decided that, LastCast now LastCast, now DADcast actually.
LastCast has returned in the form of a
So,
DADcast.
Yes, we thank a lot the old host of LastCast. Thank you, guys, for your idea. We'll try to honor your heritage.
Live up to it.
Yeah, we'll try to live up to it. So, as I said, the overall goal of the podcast is to provide, of course, community aspect of that, but mostly art focus. We'll try to always focus on the art and the people and drawing and what the people want to do with their art, more than the community aspect and the potential drama aspect. Maybe that's not very interesting in our opinion. We would most likely want to focus on the art and the ideas, the imagination, really to get a glimpse of someone's creative process, what goes on behind their DAD username. So I'll let Bastien present to you the overall structure of how we will do that.
All right. So for everyone who wants to know, to give you an idea of the overall structure that we'll have with the podcast, it goes as follows. We'll have a guest from our wonderful community of dads. There's already a few that have lined up, and they have offered themselves as the willing sacrifices to ask the gods to bless this podcast while feeding on their blood. I mean, while being asked some questions. It's not so dramatic, I'm sorry, but so we'll be doing questions, of course. We have different sets of questions that we've been planning out and discussing, going from the story of the selected user, things like, hey, how did you get interested in art? When did you start? What is your motivation? What ideas do you have for your future? What are you striving towards? And so on. To other things like, hey, how did you first found DAD? What do you think about posting on DAD? When did you start? How do you see yourself now compared to when you started? How has DAD helped you along your art journey? And things like that, as well as having other questions that will be submitted by random users and people, both from the thread and the Discord. And, we might also delve into some other topics as they pop up due to the nature of the questions asked. Would you like to list our potential guests, Lafayette?
Sure.
Those who have offered their souls to the podcast.
The ones who have made the very difficult choice of being the first, being the victims of the mishaps that may happen from our very amateurish podcast experience. Anyway, the first guests who have offered themselves are Sugar Beetle, Moth, Auto Rave, Valley, and Hoppy. So you can see a very wide variety of styles, wide variety of skills, wide variety of how long they've been on DAD. It's pretty promising how much of the landscape of DAD will develop through these first potential episodes. We hope that you're as eager as us to hear them talk about their art and their journey, and we're certainly looking forward to interview them and to hear them talk with us, because it's mostly about them. I mean, Bastien and I are here, we're the hosts. Of course, we're kind of leading the podcast, but the main focus is the artists who are invited. It's about them, and they are the ones who will make or break the podcast episode.
So, dads, with this little introduction, we've come to the end of what we like to call episode 0. This is mostly just a test and a little, like a little introduction to not leave you waiting for too long until we can get out a full episode. But yeah, rest assured that, as mentioned, we have a few guests in line, and of course, we'd like to invite any other users who would like to, propose themselves to participate. We expect you here, and we would be very happy to hear from you. Because, if you don't have guests, we don't have too much of an episode, don't we? All right. So, any closing words, Lafayette, or anything that you would like to say?
Yeah. See you next time. Hope you're looking forward to it, and most importantly, have fun drawing in the meantime.
Indeed. That's a good thing to say. Have fun, everyone. Draw a lot. And we'll be seeing you soon with our first episode. Let's hope it goes well. Farewell, everyone. All right. That was good.
Yeah, it was pretty good.